Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
Hi everyone, it's Mina with a voice note to cover what happened in the Champions League matches. I am sorry that this is a little bit later than I wanted it to be. We got some bad news yesterday of a friend of ours who lost a lot of his family in the war in the Middle East at the moment. And so it wasn't a very good night. But either way, I just finished watching Lazio and against Feyenoord because I couldn't watch that match live. And what a disappointment Lazio ended up being. A 3-1 win to Feyenoord. And honestly speaking, it should have been probably 5-1. Jimenez for them was just absolutely outstanding. He is so dynamic, so direct, so precise, so brilliant. Feyenoord in general were excellent. This was always going to be an interesting match. It's been a tense affair between these two sides in general. And Feyenoord did everything to try to protect the Lazio bench from any crowd trouble, something that we've seen in the past when Serie has had previously said that it was raining bags of piss. Because apparently they were chucking urine at him last time round when they played each other in the Europa Cup. So it is what it is. But I think Lazio will feel very upset over the match and the way in which they approached this. Now, it was really interesting because I think Lazio had started to really find themselves again, the ability to sort of dominate midfield and remain compact and show the beauty of both sides of their game. But many fingers have been pointed at Maurizio Sarri for the changes that he put in one sense in taking Patrick out and putting Casale at the back, who had a horrible game. And obviously in choosing Ciro Immobile to start over Castellanos. And Immobile just isn't the player right now to start these matches. Sarri obviously came out and said, you can't expect me to leave him out. He needs game time. But when Castellanos came in, he missed a tap-in. And really, and the penalty eventually that got them one goal. I mean, it really didn't mean anything because it came out of nothing. And it was at the end of the match when Feyenoord were already 3-0 up. But perhaps had he started the match, it would have been different. But it was a game in which it was interesting because Nikki was saying, that she doesn't know what she thinks about Lazio because it does still depend a lot on moments of brilliance from the likes of Luis Alberto. And as we saw last night, when those individuals don't turn it on, it becomes that much harder for Lazio because they should have expected that Feyenoord were going to come with a great tactical plan. They were going to have all the fans on their side and they were going to try to show the best of themselves and be very aggressive and dynamic and press. And And if you can't, and you have to just try to stay in the game as much as possible and perhaps do something in the final 20 minutes or half an hour, when obviously you would expect the opponent that has been playing such an exhausting style of football, and energetic to eventually tire. But Lazio also didn't show the best of themselves in the final. And that is the moment in which, in the final half an hour, and that is the moment in which you do expect them to come back to show themselves. So I think it was a very disappointing game. It obviously makes it that much harder for them to reach, to qualify out of the group. And now they must absolutely win their game against the team when they play at home. So all for them to do. Terrible defending. Anyway. But this wasn't the game of Wednesday night. The main game was, of course, PSG hosting Milan. And that is even more disappointing than what Lazio managed to do, because it just seemed like Milan had come there with, I honestly don't know, with almost the arrogance to think that you can take on the side and do something special without, I don't understand this, because it's becoming very hard at this moment in time to defend Stefano Pioli, who I have defended a lot. And I understood when he decided to take a very naive approach to Inter, because I thought that he was using it to experiment, to see the level of his team. But to go against PSG, who obviously boasts the greatest player in the world in Kylian Mbappe, who have players with pace like Ousmane Dembele, and obviously like, midfielders who can contribute like Emery, who's just been fantastic in general. I find it very strange that you would decide to play a game that was a lot of man-on-man duels, and that you play a high line and you gift PSG so many opportunities to use that pace against you, to counterattack against you, to find those spaces that were never shut down. It was almost like Milan were allergic to being compact. And it was shocking to watch. And he said, it's about distractions. I mean, here's the thing. This is how you know a great coach from another one, because what is so brilliant about Ancelotti, especially when you compare them to Pioli and, for example, Maurizio Sarri, who've both achieved their own success. They've both won a title with their respective clubs, Juventus with Sarri, obviously Pioli and Milan. But what Ancelotti does so well is that he creates a team and a strategy, but one that's never dependent on not making mistakes. Everything he does and every style that he chooses to play is done so that if a mistake does happen, there's a plan B and there's a plan C as to how to rescue the situation, because he expects his players to make mistakes. He doesn't expect perfection. What annoys me so much from a coach like Maurizio Sarri is that his players need to be switched on for the full 90 minutes, which is almost too much, because you have to have such a high quality of players to be able to really do that. And then should they make a mistake, then it's an obvious goal. And I don't like these types of risks, because they depend on players not making mistakes. And what I like about Ancelotti is that he expects his players to make mistakes. And that's how his tactics are played. And I do feel that on this occasion, Pioli coming out and say, well, we were distracted. What did you think, that your team was going to be able to take on the greatest player in midfield, from half of which I've never even heard of before? Like, I find it like, who you thought Krunic and Reinders would be able to contain and help a defense against Kylian Mbappe and Ousmane Dembele, who arrived from Barcelona, and it annoyed me. It annoyed me the amount of spaces that allowed PSG to play. And they played a 4-2-4. They came in with a very ambitious game plan, one that was actually very much, I was going to say poo-pooed. It's really not the right word to use. That was completely trashed by all pundits and critics when he chose to play that way against Tonali, because it was almost deemed as arrogant to play 4-2-4 against Newcastle. And yet he came in with a 4-2-4. And there's good old Milan being like, yeah, we're going to go toe-to-toe and see what happens. It obviously didn't help. They got 2 yellow cards very quickly, which stopped the likes of Thiaw and to really try to stop this wonderful PSG side. But it, for me, was remarkably naive, and I expected a lot better from Stefano Pioli. Now, there are some things that it's worth mentioning. Milan haven't scored now a goal in 5 consecutive Champions League games. This has never happened to an Italian team. More importantly, they had now, I believe that it's both Leao and Giroud who haven't scored in over a month for Milan, which poses a lot of problems for them going forward. So in 360 minutes of football, they've only managed one goal, and that was Pulisic's against Genoa. So it's surprising, really, that a team that has really tried to invest in attacking players, to offer themselves alternatives to Rafael Leao on the left, the player that they always need to be a magician, really, and one of the players they depended on last season and the one before, obviously. But they found themselves to be so dependent on him. They were like, right, let's invest in attacks. Let's try to create a team that can attack from all angles. And right now they can't score a goal. And so offensively, they are confused and not good enough. And defensively, they've always been vulnerable. I know that they've done a good job so far, but you look at that side and you never thought to yourself that Tomori and Kalulu or whoever it is at the back was really strong enough to keep out the very best. And Krunic had a terrible night as well. It's just, I look at this team and I'm like, are they very good? Well, because Pulisic is not going to be the guy that shows up for these matches. You want Leao to show up in these matches. And his inconsistencies have really now proved to be a problem, because it just seems like this player, he's dazzling to watch when he's on, but when he's off, it's really frustrating to watch. It's very, very frustrating to watch. And somehow Milan are still very dependent on him. So yes, there's many, many things that Milan have to obviously address with their own side. They've now lost all 3 big matches they've played in. Obviously, the spanking by Inter, a loss to Juventus over the weekend, the 1-0, and now a loss to PSG. They have to absolutely win against Napoli, or we are talking about a crisis that's going to impact them going forward. They've got to find different ways of playing the game. They've got to realize how to be a lot more compact within this game. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really difficult for them this season. And it's imperative that they win the remaining 3 games. Obviously, next time it will be them hosting PSG, but I shudder every time I think of Kylian Mbappe against this side. Also worth noting, this was the 200th game of Stefano Pioli on the bench, and he fielded a side without a single Italian starting for them, although Calabria did come on afterwards. There were question marks about how angry Calabria is with Pioli, and he said that if you don't believe, in speaking to the team, if you don't believe that we can make it, then you shouldn't be there. So do you believe in Milan making it at this point? I honestly don't know, but I certainly hope that they understand how to be tight and how to play against these big teams. Otherwise, it's a major problem. That's all for now, and hope you're well, and can't wait to record the main pod with Nikki next week. Ciao.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.